Welcome to another session of our lecture, Successful Negotiation and Communication. Last time we talked about the Harvard concept of successful negotiation. In short, just the Harvard concept. And the Harvard concept is comprised of four success factors or four elements. Here they are again on the slide. First, people and problems should be treated separately. Second is the iceberg model of communication. Interests count, not the positions. So that is a little bit of the iceberg model, or the Václavic axiom of communication is in there. Then the third one is develop options that generate profits or values to both partners. And the fourth one being the agreement and consent on a neutral assessment criteria. And we talked about each of them in detail last time. Otherwise, watch the video which we recorded and which is on my YouTube channel. So why is negotiation in any case, or sophisticated communication, a key success factor? Because I was explaining that before, because the higher you move up in the hierarchy, the more you want to develop, the less technical skills are important, and the more non-technical skills will be instrumental and paramount. And in particular, also from a business perspective, this is true and this is valid, because we have the problem and the challenge that in today's world there is an increasing interchangeability of products and services. Meaning, even if you have a product which is having some kind of a competitive advantage over your rivals' products and services, this is copied in an ever shorter period amount of time. So let's assume you have a new kind of anesthesia device being developed, being created. However, in today's world, everything that works, everything that is successful is being copied in an ever shorter period amount of time. I was referring to this metaphor of the penguins standing on an ice shelf in other lectures. So penguins are standing on an ice shelf, so they are representing companies and organizations, and they're all hungry for fish, and they're starving. And but the penguins are also anxious, because if one penguin jumps into the water, he may be killed by an orca, because they are not sure whether they are orcas, whether they are enemies around. So at one moment in time, one penguin jumps into the water first and he gets the best fish. And what are the others doing? They're just watching him. If he gets the best fish, if he's not being killed, everybody's following. So that is a very nice analogy, a metaphor for innovation processes in general. So if you have a cool innovation, if you have a cool product in whatever branch you are in, whether you're in the medical, whether you're in the pharmaceutical industry, whether you are in the consumer electronics business, doesn't make any difference. Just think about 2011 was the introduction of Siri to the iOS coming from Apple. And Siri, everybody was looking at Siri. Oh, are people are they really I don't know, fond of talking to their phone? And then people liked it, although Siri was not perfect at the beginning, and she still not is. But people liked it, and what happened was that only couple of weeks after the launch of Siri, the inclusion of Siri to the iOS, Samsung was having Bixby, Microsoft was professionalizing Cortana, etc., etc., etc. So what was once an innovation and an advantage over competitors is soon becoming a commodity. And the second phase, after one penguin is successful with an innovation, he gets the best fish, and everybody's following him, copying him. The second phase is called the fast selling item phase. So why is now communication so important for companies? Not only for you personally, if you want to advance in the organizations, but you need honest relationships. If you build up a relationship with your customer through sophisticated communication, that is giving you a competitive edge. Why? Because, like I said, products are interchangeable, so they can be exchanged quite quickly. And whether I buy my Nike sneakers at the Nike flagship store or at 𝗕𝗏𝗁 or at 𝗕𝗲𝗁 doesn't make any difference. So where's the difference coming from? If there is a relationship being built up by a company and the sales force, for example, you're more likely to buy with them, because a result is you have an increased buying frequency, with this kind of company. And what you have as well is you have recommendation from those kind of loyal customers. So that is, by the way, the business model and the success that Amazon is built upon. Basically, it's this point. So Amazon is pursuing what we call a relationship marketing approach. They're trying to establish a relationship with the customers. Their primary goal is not to generate profits. This is only coming in the second and third place. But first, it is to build the relationship. And if the relationship is strong and the people that are trusting Amazon and they're ordering everything and more through Amazon, then they will capitalize and profit later from this kind of relationship. And here, excellent communication negotiation skills. So this is a factor in general which will help you to convince people about not only new business models, but also about yourself, your projects, your ideas, your brand, if you're self-entrepreneur, for example. So that is invaluable. And what also will help you, or what this course will help you to achieve, is you can better tailor your argumentation to the individual needs and wants of the person you are talking to. So therefore, and for these reasons, communication is of paramount importance. And these are the phases of a communication process or a negotiation process when it comes to really winning, not winning over somebody, but you try to not compel somebody or to persuade somebody, but to convince somebody, right, without him losing. So you try to win without him losing. And how do you do that? Ideally, a process looks like that. So you have, first of all, the first point is you need to prepare for the negotiation in advance. And we'll talk about how this will happen. And then we'll also try to motivate ourselves, because some people are a bit hesitant to go into a negotiation or to talk to a lot of people, for example. And the second point is discussion climate and welcome. So that is the greetings phase. We'll talk about that. And this is very important as well. You need to do a needs analysis before making proposals. Most people do it the other way around. Most people do like that. But this is wrong. This is not correct. Most people, they bring forward their proposals and their arguments and say, yeah, my product is suitable because of A, B, C, D, E, before they understood what the other person really needs and requires. And that doesn't make any sense, because we are always saying, first understand before being understood. So that is the main part here. Then, after you understood, you can bring forward the needs, of course. Then there is always some kind of objection. So your product is too expensive, for example, or somebody has never done it like that before, etc., etc. So what happens if objections are coming in? So how are you handling that? And then how you're coming to a close, how you're coming to an agreement. And this is the after negotiation phase. How do you follow up? So for example, how are you fostering the relationships? So this is ideally, this is not the negotiation if you go into the supermarket and want to buy a Coca-Cola, but this is usually, ideally, in an ideal world, the process that you're going through if you want to convince somebody about your products, about your services, about whatever, a contract. So, and this is universal. So this is universally applicable, whether you're selling anesthesia devices or whether you want to, I don't know, whether you want to mediate in a political conflict. It's the same. It's the same. Yeah. If you want to now have, I don't know, peace negotiations. So also these processes or these phases apply to any kind of situation. That is most important to understand. So this is very universal. So this is not only when you want to sell or buy a dishwasher or a car or so. This is universally applicable in every situation. Whenever you try to convince somebody, also for example, if you're looking for a professor to supervise your PhD, for example, and there is only limited amount of PhD vacancies at an institute, at the university, for example. How are you doing that? And this is the same process. Also, it works like that. Or how are you convincing, I don't know, some publisher to publish your book, or to invite you to speak at a big conference, such as TED. I mentioned that I'm now invited to talk, to become a TED speaker, which is a great honor, of course, for every kind of speaker and professional. Now, so that is very important to stress and to emphasize that this is always the process that is happening. So first of all, we have to look at some basics, basic terminologies when it comes to the Harvard concept, and the Harvard people introduced that. First of all, there is the term of ZOPA, and ZOPA is the zone of possible agreement, the zone of possible agreement. And this defines the scope of a possible bilateral agreement between two or more parties in a negotiation. So it can be also multilateral, of course. So let's look at that in more depth. Where is the SOPA? Okay. First of all, another term here, the BATNA. The BATNA is very important. The BATNA is very important, BATNA. The BATNA is an abbreviation, an acronym for Best Alternative to Negotiated Agreement. And this is the only criterion by which you should measure the success of an agreement. The BATNA is always the best alternative, your best plan B in comparison to the outcome of the negotiations to be achieved. So now, to assess the success of the negotiation, I was stressing that it is very important to know your own best alternatives and to know the best alternatives of your negotiation partner. And you should never ever accept an outcome which is worse than your own BATNA. Now, what is the BATNA? It seems so abstract. Let's look at a very easy example. I have it, I think, on the next slide. Yes. So imagine you have an old cassette recorder, a very old, obsolete stuff, but your mom likes it because she once saw it at your home, and and you want to sell this cassette recorder on a flea market. And you want to charge, because it's a kind of vintage look, and you want to charge 50 euros for that. Now, after a while, a customer comes and offers you 30 euros. And he's claiming that he's seen a similar device for 40 euros at another booth. And likely you agree on a price which is between 35 and 45. Now, what is the BATNA? And here comes the BATNA comes in. So your mom likes the cassette recorder, and originally for her birthday you wanted to buy her a theater ticket for 40 euros. Now this is a best alternative. So if you cannot sell the cassette recorder at an appropriate price, you give it to your mom. And if the 40, otherwise you would have paid 40 euros for the theater tickets. Now this is the best alternative to the negotiated agreement. Yeah, so the 40 euros for the theater tickets, which you would have otherwise paid as a present, you can then save if you give the cassette recorder to her. So the 40 euros is the BATNA, and also it defines the minimum goal and the minimum price you wanna achieve. If somebody's saying, okay, 35, then you say, okay, I'm not selling for 35, because then you take it home and you give it to your mom. If somebody is giving you 45, you have another 5 euros. Yeah, so I think the BATNA principle becomes clear now. How are you developing the BATNA? How can you arrive at a BATNA? I just was making a process here. First, you have to create a list of options and the actions you may do if there is no agreement. So that is the first step here. So what are your options available? For example, if you're leaving a university after graduation and you have hopefully several kind of offers, right? How can you use the principle of BATNA to be successful or to be most successful, or what is psychologically most advisable? It is most advisable to go to a company, or first of all to have an interview at the companies where you want to go the least. For example, you have companies A, B, C offering jobs, and you want to go ideally. That's your dream job. Yay! But first, even if you get interviews by all the three of them, you don't go to A in the first place, but you go to C first. Why? Because if you fail in the interview, okay, that is not a big loss, because you want to go to A. If you're successful, you can use C as to build a strong BATNA, because if you enter the job interview at A, you always have the fallback option of C, right? Also, a BATNA is being unemployed, for example. There's always a BATNA, but sometimes the BATNA is not very strong. So psychologically, you can use the BATNA perfectly to arrive at a better negotiation position. You should be creative and use appropriate techniques such as brainstorming, brainwriting, or morphological box methods to come out with several kind of options. Then you need to reconsider whether each alternative is realistic and deserves to be pursued further. And then for fourth place, choose the BATNA. Choose the BATNA and enter the negotiation. Bargaining power in BATNA. I was quickly explaining that before when I was talking about the job interview. First of all, you need to consider what BATNA your negotiation partner has ideally. So what are his or her options? If you suspect the other side has a bad BATNA or rather weak BATNA, then try to get them to talk about it. But never ever threaten anybody. If you have a strong BATNA, don't push somebody. Don't blackmail anybody, right? So even if you have a good BATNA, you can show it to the other side, but don't threaten. don't threaten the other person. So like, I have a very good offer from this kind of a company, so if you don't hire me, I'm I'm not going to be sad, etc., etc. So that is of course psychological, not a very wise move. So however, the stronger the willingness of you to accommodate even a failure to reach an agreement, the more powerful you can communicate your interests and arrive at a good solution for you. And that is what my Harvard colleagues, Professor Lax and Professor Sebenius, call make sure they believe you can walk away. Because you can only do that if you have a strong BATNA. For example, if you enter a job interview at company A and you don't have any other offers from any other companies, and your BATNA is to be unemployed or to write a PhD thesis, this is what the other person senses. So your position is not very, very strong. So it is always a wise step, ideally, to build up a strong BATNA before you enter negotiations, or to better up your BATNA before you enter negotiations. So the BATNA is a very, very important principle when it comes to negotiations. What are the biggest mistakes you can do when you negotiate? What are the biggest mistakes, the biggest flaws? First, exerting pressure. I was just referring to that when I was talking about the BATNA. So if you put on pressure to somebody, pressure is always causing counter pressure. And you remember that we talked about, for example, that even if you're powerful, but power you demonstrate towards the other person, you don't possess. You remember the sentence, right? Power you demonstrate, you don't possess. So the most powerful people are the people who don't exert pressure or power on other people, but who are more like, I was using the metaphor before, who are more doing the judo instead of karate. Do more the judo. So don't attack the other person, because if you put pressure on somebody, this is not going to help. This is also what I was experiencing, and when I was talking about my book contracts and my negotiations there, keep that in mind. So even if you have, for example, even if you have the backup by the board of directors, for example, when it comes to a project, but you need other departments help to successfully develop the project. And then the worst thing would be to use the power or the consent of the board of directors to blackmail or to put pressure on the other departments to step in your project or to step in favor of your project. This is never going to help. Even if you have the power to dismiss people, to fire people, right? Or to really make life bad for them. Don't do that. This is not going to help. So exerting pressure is never a wise move, because that may be successful, yes, but it will tarnish the relationship, and in the long run, it is counterproductive. Then failing to be flexible. That is another point. Failing to be flexible. It's another point that you shouldn't do. Failing to be flexible means that you're just focusing on, like we said, on the positions, and you fail to look at the interests. Remember what we talked about when we were talking about the Harvard concept about the pie. We always think that the pie is limited to somehow, and that there is should be a division of the pie. But this is not the case. This is not the case. What we should aim at always is to make the cake bigger for all parties. That is what we should aim for. We should make the cake bigger for all parties being involved. Think about the story of the two daughters who were in a dispute over an orange, and one wanted just the coating of the orange to do marmalade, and the other wanted just the juice of the orange. But the mother was so annoyed that she cut the orange into 2 pieces, and everybody was getting 50%. But every daughter could have arrived at 100%. And that is what the Harvard people call an integrative the decision-making process or integrative negotiation, you want to make the cake bigger for all parties involved. That is a big art. That is a big art. And usually people fail to do that because they fail to be flexible. Being aggressive, it is a bit like the first one. So, of course, being aggressive is never a good good move. And being aggressive, looking at the transaction analysis, and when we talked about that, we already we said that aggressiveness is not only calling the other person an idiot or something, right? But just shaking the head. If somebody's talking, if somebody's bringing forward a point, and you just do like that, yeah, that is already aggressive. On a subconscious level, on a subliminal level, on a transaction analysis level, this is already aggressive. Or to say, okay, I have a different opinion, or we should also take into consideration that may be perceived as being aggressive, depending on the other person. Being over-compliant, so giving in very, very quickly, and being over-compliant is also not good, because then you're devaluating what you're offering. And finally, inadequate preparation. Most people are inadequately prepared for job interviews, for projects, for everything, for examinations. They're inadequately prepared. So they didn't prepare, for example, objection handling. You do this in the preparation phase. You think about in advance, you think about, okay, if I'm going into the job interview, what kind of objections might be coming from the other side, and how I'm handling those. So that is of instrumental and paramount importance. So let's look at the first step of the negotiation process. Prepare for the discussion. Preparation phase. So we are in the first phase here, the preparation phase. And that's coming from the Art of War, from Sun Tzu. We are not able to lead an army before we know the terrain of the battle. And Benjamin Franklin, the great Benjamin Franklin, by failing to prepare, you are preparing to fail. I love that, because that is referring to what we just said a couple of minutes ago, that inadequate preparation is a big mistake you should avoid, or you can avoid doing. So what should you do? First, self-analysis of the situation. Familiarize yourself with thinking about your position, your interests and objectives. And if you know exactly where you want to be, you can direct the course of the negotiation into that specific direction. What is very important is the negotiation's aim is therefore, it should be smart. It should be a smart goal. We come to that on a later slide. Smart, and you know that this from other courses or from in general. The goal should always be specific, measurable, ambitious, realistic. And finally, time-bound. It should be time-bound as well. Yes? So, that is how goals should be. And it is wise not to define one goal, but to define 3 results, 3 outcomes. One is the best result. So the nice to have goal, the ideal situation, right? Your dream job with extra payment and I don't know, extra bonus and whatever, I don't know. This describes the most optimistic variant of your target definition. Then the realistic result, the 1.5, the core target, right? So that would be, for example, 120%. That is 100%. Right, and that is not no, that's not really that's not precisely correct, because the second one should be more than 90, for example. And the stop line, the retreat destination, That's the last one here, the retreat destination. That is the BATNA. That is the BATNA. You should never accept a goal which is, or an outcome which is worse than your BATNA. So this is the minimum target. Probably this is, I don't know, that is probably 90%. And you want to aim at 100%. So that would be percentage-wise probably some kind of a clue. But it's not always salary. So if you go into job interview, it's not only salary you wanna maximize. Of course, there are other factors that come in as well. And here is this SMART principle I was referring to earlier before. Goals should always be defined as SMART goals. Now, that is interesting. That is a very cool slide. It doesn't look very cool, but that shows the and that's empiric data. If you have no goal at all, so if you have a very unspecified goal, so you enter a negotiation and there is no clear goal, then you arrive at an outcome of $4,729 US. If you have not a very ambitious goal, but a light goal was given to salespeople of $4,000, they over-accomplished and they arrived at 4,800. If you have a middle goal, 5.2, and if you have a very ambitious goal, you get at a higher turnover. So that shows you that if you have no goal, no specified goal, then people are not performing that well. And that is also a management tool. That is a management tool. Taking off the camera now. So because we call that MBO process, management by objectives, management by objectives, by setting goals. When I was young and I had my first job at the 𝗲𝗲, 𝗕𝗲𝗴-𝗁𝗲𝗃, and that was a mineral oil company. There was no goal. There was no goal. I just had a job description, and there was no specified goal for me. Being in the headquarters, being responsible for marketing, but there was no specified goals such as, I don't know, he's responsible for management of category food in the German retail market, but not he has to accomplish or he has to arrive at a 10% increase when it comes to turnover, or he has to do 2 promotions per year or per month or whatever. No goal at all. At Shell, even if you're working in the headquarters, for every employee there were specific goals, like Marc is responsible for increasing the turnover when it comes to non-alcoholic beverages of 2.5% this year, and for, I don't know, chocolate bars 3.5%, etc., etc. And that makes sense, because if you don't have any goal, there's no target for people to achieve, nothing to accomplish, right? And it's very unspecified. The same in sports. If you're professional in sports, like you're doing professional running, or you have some kind of an ambition, and you want to improve your personal best, and you track that, and you fight to achieve or to break your personal best, to improve your personal best mark. That is giving you motivation. If you don't have any kind of personal best, if you don't have any kind of goal to be achieved, then you can just, I don't know, then there is no improvement usually. And the same applies for organizations. So to target objectives, use the following checklist or key questions. 1, what are your personal motives for talking? So what do you want to accomplish, right? What are your goals for the meeting? There should be SMART, and remember, there should be 3 different levels of goal setting. Then, what are your interests in the meeting? Not only the position, but the interest of the meeting. What motives and interests does the opposite number have? So what are the other people thinking about? What is below the surface? What is below the position they have, right? What potential conflicts do you see? So that is already pinpointing at this objectives and objection handling, if there is objection, not objective, objection. What possible agreements do you see? And there is a very sophisticated tool. It's not rocket science, but it makes sense to do that. That is what I was pinpointing at in my book as well. So you have the different criteria. So these are all the different criteria, and you can, of course, also for job selection, there are different criteria. This is just for machinery here for a medical device. So there are different criteria, and then there are different outcomes, different options. And then terms of payment, for example, maintenance, technical efficiency, etc., etc., etc. And then you can use a scale here to rank the criteria. You should use a scale of 1 to 100 or 1 to 10 or 1 to 5, doesn't make any difference. So of course, if you get a better price for the product, now the connection of the whiteboard was a bit lost, but if you get a better price, of course, for the product, this gives you a greater score than if you only get a price, for example, of 66,000 euros. Now, and what you can do if you prepare like that, you can have several kind of bundles, as offers. Several kind of bundles. So, for example, you accept a lower price, option 2, for example, here, if you're selling, but then you want to have payment on delivery. Yeah, payment on delivery. Otherwise, the first offer is you want a higher price. You want a higher price here, first offer, but so 70,000. But then here somebody has, for example, 3-month terms of payment, etc., etc. What is that good for? It is good to negotiate later when there's somebody saying, okay, if we offer you a job, we are not able to pay you the salary you want, you aspire. And you can say, for example, okay, that is fine for me. However, if I accept a lower salary, I would claim, or I would like to have, I don't know, 2 trainings guaranteed per year or whatever. I don't know. So that is what we talk about later on. If you give in to something, if you concede to one thing, you should claim another thing in return. If you just concede without claiming something in return, then you're over-compliant. Think about the Hollywood movie, The Silence of the Lambs, when Jodie Foster is negotiating with Dr. Hannibal Lecter. They're always saying, quid pro quo, doctor. That's a very famous quote, quid pro quo, doctor. So if I'm telling you something about my dreams, about my personality, you have to help me find the murderer. Okay. So put yourself in the position of the stakeholders, of all stakeholders, not only of the negotiation partner, but of all stakeholders. That is very important to understand. All stakeholders, and ask yourself what attitude they are likely to take. Yeah, what attitude does the negotiation partner has with respect to you, and what are the goals of your negotiation partner? That is very important, of course. Also, how dependent is the opposite on achieving the target? What time limits? Are there any time constraints, for example, for the other person? What are the arguments of the other side that are particularly strong? What objections, what kind of criticism do I expect? And what concessions are probably made in previous negotiations? So that is a kind of a checklist here. Sets of questions for a stakeholder analysis. then you should always do, it's on the next slide, you should look at all stakeholders in the negotiation process. There can be internal stakeholders. It of course depends on the project you're carrying through. If you're in a job interview, that's of course a different kind of a story. But here now, for example, you have the business leader, but you also have the works council being a potential internal stakeholder. For example, if you're getting the task to reduce costs in the organization, the works council, for example, is a powerful internal stakeholder. And it doesn't only make sense to think about what are the interests of the business, the management board, but also of all parties being involved in the decision-making process. These are external stakeholders, customers, shareholders, media, but also media, of course, public authorities, trade unions, etc., etc. So it's quite complex. You can see that. What you should do is, ideally, you should do a stakeholder matrix. A stakeholder matrix, it is shown here. So you think about all the stakeholders and rank them or position them in a diagram. Are they in favor of the project or are they against the project? And then you can group them in this diagram. For example, the people who are these are the people who are powerful. That's plus, minus, plus, minus. So they are powerful, but they are in favor of your project. They are in favor of your project. This is just tick in the box for you. You don't need to win them over because they're already on your side. The people, and these are the most important people here. These people, they are powerful. They are powerful, but they are opposed to your project. They are opposed to your project. You have to convince them. You have to win them over. This is your action point. Win over. This is tick in the box here. The people who are having less of an influence and a power and in favor of your project, this tick in the box, and the people who are against the project and who are less powerful, you need to observe them. You need to observe them, and whether they are they can be more powerful, or they have an influence on them, or then they can have an influence on them. That is very important to do that, and ideally you list them in a table, and you think about how you can engage each of the stakeholder groups to convince them about the favorability of your project. This is shown on the slide here. So you have here the different kind of people. What is the impact on their results? What is the interest in the solution? Stakeholder type. Okay, that is not so interesting. But here, measures to integrate. So this is important. You need to think about every kind of a measure or how you can win different kind of stakeholders over. Yeah, that is the same kind of stuff here. So look to the future before any negotiation by considering the questions listed in the following checklist. This is not comprehensive, but it's just telling you how cumbersome preparation is. And therefore, most people are not so well prepared. When I was, for example, given the opportunity to talk to the Kotler management, and when it was up to me to be involved and to be entering the board of directors at Kotler as a chief research officer, I was preparing for a telephone interview with the Kotler management, and for that telephone interview I was preparing 50 hours, 50 hours, just for one telephone call of 30 minutes. I was preparing 50 hours. Yes, you hear it right, 50 hours I was preparing. I was doing stakeholder analysis and saying what are the objections that may be coming in, what are my pros, etc., etc., and how can I best win over the partner in the negotiation. Now, what are your objectives? First question. What are your objectives, both substantively and on a personal level? What is the minimum target you want to achieve? So that is, of course, the BATNA. What is the maximum target, the ideal goal? We talked about that before. And then check, are your goals SMART? So specific, measurable, ambitious, realistic, and time-bound. And what is the best realistic alternative? And what is your opening bid? So how are you starting in the negotiation? Then next, where does the negotiation partner stand? So where is he or she coming from? What do you know about the negotiation partner's name, position, hobby, preference, character? What do you know about the company you're negotiating with? Size, turnover, history, competitors, etc., etc. Who's involved in the decision-making process? Very good question. What interests and needs does the opposite number have? How much information does the other side have about the matter? Very good question. And are there any commonalities? Are there any common interests? That is also what the Harvard people are telling us. Look for commonalities. Then which opinion will the opposite side hold in the arguments they will presumably present? And what do they want to achieve or avoid? And finally, what is needed that the opposite side, the negotiation partner, regards the negotiation as a success? What interview strategy and tactics will you follow? How are you proceeding? How are you entering the negotiation? First question. How do you structure the negotiation? What information do you want to ask for? Which core additional benefits do you offer or can you offer? What are the main points? So that is the table I was pinpointing at before. At which point are you willing to offer concessions? What concessions can be requested in return? Think about that quid pro quo principle. What objections could the negotiator put forward? This is just, and you see that just looking at, and this is not comprehensive, but you see, looking at all those kind of questions, how complex the negotiation is, and challenge yourself, when have you ever done that? Which negotiation strategy and tactics are you going to apply? We had that before. What was one? Next one. What organizational measures should be taken? So will you communicate by telephone, writing, negotiate in person? That is in particular applicable or relevant in today's pandemic times. Where will you meet? How can you create an ideal atmosphere for the discussion? Are you alone or negotiating in a team? Who will take which role in the team? Is there a time frame? And how confident do you feel in negotiating? How can you reduce the stress when preparing? Okay, so, and that is the first part. So that is the preparation. And now we're coming, and what we ended here, we're coming to the self-motivation part. How can you react to the stress, if there's any kind of stress? How can you put yourself into a positive mood when negotiating? I stay in the line, but I end the recording here. Thanks very much for your attention, and I see you for another video next week. Cheers, and bye-bye.